The Great Depression in the 1930s struck the American economy a severe blow which nearly proved fatal. Then, boosted greatly by the entry of the United States into World War I in 1941, it slowly began recovering. And constructing machines of war and feeding, arming, and cladding millions of soldiers gave the economy a much-needed shot in the arm. Following the war's end in 1945, Americans feared a return to poor economic conditions, but this did not happen as the economic momentum of the war carried over into peacetime. The country's gross national product grew from $200 billion in 1940 to $300 billion in 1950 and, eventually, to $500 billion by 1960. The economy was assisted by the United States' new position as a world leader. The onset of the Cold War between the US and the Soviet Union resulted in an arms race as each side sought to develop massive and powerful military forces. The American government funneled enormous sums of money to its military forces, allowing them to grow to a tremendous size for a peacetime military. These funds were paid for with income tax dollars taken from the growing American workforce, which had been aided by the return to the country of millions of soldiers, many of whom entered universities paid for by the GL Bill. It provided educational supplements to soldiers and allowed more people to attend universities than at any previous time in American history. University graduates then entered the workforce and became taxpayers. Growth in peacetime industries and transportation additionally stimulated the economy. The development of the television, radio, and music industries opened new fields of entertainment and profit for the economy. Factories also started resuming manufacturing civilian products that people could afford since so many jobs were being created. Automobile factories retooled from making tanks and jeeps to manufacturing cars again. President Eisenhower signed the Federal Aid Highway Act of 1956, which began the Interstate Highway Building Program, thereby greatly enhancing automobile production. This interstate highway system also contributed to economic growth as large parts of the nation became connected by the more than 60,000 kilometers of roads that were constructed. During the war, many industries, particularly the aircraft industry, developed in the Southwest and Pacific Coast regions. Wartime innovations involving aircraft resulted in peacetime advances in civilian aircraft production. By the 1960s, civilian air transportation became common. A housing boom fueled in part by low interest rate loans to returning soldiers, allowing them to be able to afford to purchase new homes, also occurred after the end of the war. New houses were constructed using techniques such as having prefabricated sections of houses built in factories, and then assembled on site. The convenient housing market in turn resulted in numerous marriages and higher birth rates, the so-called baby boom, because more people felt that they had enough money to start families and to have homes of their own. Many of these homes were constructed in locations outside cities in what soon became suburbs. Denizens of suburbs were frequently people fleeing inner cities to find peace and quiet in the safety and comfort of their new homes. There was also expansion of large conglomerates as big companies swallowed smaller ones, which led to consolidation in both industry and services. This had an effect on the workforce as more individuals became white-collar office-going employees. Innovations in factory production led to more machines doing work, thereby shrinking the size of the blue-collar workforce. One other area where the economic boom had a negative impact was on small farmers. Large numbers of farms were purchased by corporations when the food industry started expanding and becoming more streamlined. Small family-owned farms could not compete with large food corporations, so this, in turn, resulted in more people abandoning their farms to find work in urban centers. The end result of everything was a booming national economy by the 1960s. Urban populations expanded while rural populations declined. A large number of Americans became educated, well-paid, home-owning suburbanites. This growth happened virtually unabated until 1973, when a recession tied to growing world oil prices and rising inflation resulted in a decline that stagnated the economy for several years.